Okay, I think. Almost. Where are we? Oh, we're on the wrong thing there. Let's go. Let's go there. Okay, I think. I think we're live. There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, sorry. Having a moment. Gonna do a quick sound check, make sure everybody's happy with how everything sounds and looks. I apologize for being a minute late. I remembered last week where YouTube was screaming at me for trying to transmit in 4K. So I took a minute to switch that back to 1080p. I could probably do 720p and it would be fine, but I did 1080p anyway. So, Scan Mikey says, we can see and hear you fine. That's awesome. Thank you for letting me know. Andrea says, greetings. Mask Grave says, hey. Kardik says, hi. Loud and clear from Dustin. Awesome. Thank you guys all so much for hanging out with me on Sunday morning or wherever you happen to be in whatever time zone. Looks great. My audio works right this time. Yay. Glad to hear it, Nighthawk. Do appreciate that. I don't really have much to talk about. I just kind of wanted to hang out and see how things were going. Kartik, really, and I apologize if I screwed that up. I'm not great with names, but I'm glad to hear that my content is definitely helpful for you. That's obviously the goal that I'm going for, is trying to make sure that my content's helpful. So, Borg Swarm, how you doing? I'm glad to see you here. I think things are progressing with me. Recently bought an old Elite Desk server for Homelab and TrueNAS. That's awesome. That's really cool. I've been looking at a lot of hardware. We talk about a lot of hardware over in the Discord, and I've been looking and trying to justify to myself that I should buy something new, and just can't bring myself to do it. So I often have to live vicariously through you guys when you talk about getting new hardware and that sort of thing. I know I get a lot of mini PCs and things like that, but actual servers are few and far between. I've been talking a little bit with 45 Drives about their HL15. We've been chatting a bit, but I've been putting it off because I just don't think I'm ready for that kind of commitment just yet. But hopefully soon, hopefully in the next month or so, my brain will be in a better place to take on a project like that. Let's see. Nighthawk says, I look for the best deals and think it over for a few months before I pull the trigger. Dude, I get that. I recently started a new project that wasn't expensive. In fact, it was relatively cheap. But yeah, I spent weeks just going through it over and over and over, trying to make sure that it was what I wanted to do. So I totally get that. I just set up Authentic and CrowdSec and absolutely love both of them. Have you covered those yet? No. There was one that I did a couple of years ago. Athelia, I think, is the one that I did. And that was when my brain was in a good spot. And that video is one of the most tedious videos I've ever made in my life. Trying to make sure that it was exactly right and having to reshoot things and redo things. So no, I haven't covered CrowdSec. In fact, CrowdSec was just kind of becoming a thing when I did the Athelia video. And it was after I did the Athelia video, CrowdSec was too much to even try to deal with at that point. I like the idea behind it. I like kind of the community aspect of what's going on behind it, as far as, like if my server sees an IP address or an agent or doing something crazy, then it kind of spreads the word across all of the Authentic servers, and I dig that. Or not, was it Authentic? CrowdSec. Sorry, I misspoke. There was CrowdSec. I like the community idea behind CrowdSec, but it was too much for me to deal with at the time, and I don't think I've got it in me right now. Let's see. Arpan says, I like the review on the new components that is just coming up, so always check your vids to get a quick overview before launching it myself. I'm really glad to hear that. That's kind of what I'm going for here on the channel. I try to find, projects that you might not have heard of, like Wallace, which is the one that I did a video on last week. And thank you guys for watching that. I was stoked to see that get, like, I think we're up to like 3,300 views on it. So I was stoked that even after a couple of months of not releasing content, that video did that well. That said, it took me about 3 times as long to produce as my videos did last year. Basically, it was, a couple of days of research and getting familiar with the Docker container, and then like a full day of writing and editing and writing and editing and that sort of thing, and then basically a day of recording. And I did some editing the first day, but then the next day was all editing as well. So it was a much slower process, and I'm still trying to figure out what the video for this week is going to be. I've got some ideas that we'll probably talk about here in a little bit, but it's definitely a slower process than I would like it to be, but it's still a process, and it's things are getting better, and I'm happy about that. Let's see. Dustin said he managed to pick up a Pi 5. That's awesome. And I totally get it, man. I've got one that's been sitting on my desk since like November, December, and I want to do something with it, but I just don't know what quite yet. Let's see. I think it's very intensive. It's good, but with so many options. I believe that. Cyberpunk, dude, glad to have you here. You're definitely welcome here. It says, hi, everybody. Haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, January was rough, and February wasn't much better as far as my mental health was concerned. So last week we started doing live streams again on Sunday mornings, at least morning for me. So yeah, we're gonna keep doing these. We're gonna try to do at least a video a week for a while. Again, I'm not sure what my video this week is gonna be, but I'm sure I'll come up with something. Oh, let's see. Was it just following? I don't know who that is. For Authentic, would love to see you. I might do it at some point, a video on Authentic. I haven't had the capacity for it in a while. Let's see. I've tried running Steam as a Docker container, as a headless gaming server, just sharing that it's possible. Sadly, the documentation is only in Danish. That sounds like an interesting idea. I like the idea of setting up a game server that way. That's really actually intriguing. We were talking about game servers last week. There was talk of like Pterodactyl, which I tried off and on for months to get it to work on my server. Just couldn't get it figured out. There was one other that was talked about last week whose name escapes me entirely. But setting up a Steam thing like that sounds pretty interesting. Masquerade says, I just switched from Mesh Central to Remotely for self-hosted remote management, and the interface is super clean, not as many features as Mesh Central, but it meets my needs. And sometimes that's the best way to do it. Sometimes too many options, too many features, too many things will get in the way. So sometimes I will deliberately take, for lack of a better word, a dumbed down version of something, just because I prefer the simplicity of it just doing that thing exactly the way I want it to, versus having a bunch of options I'll never use. So no, if Remotely is working better for you, man, then I would say stick with it. I don't do enough remote help, I don't think, to set something like that up. I've looked at both Remotely and Mesh Central, but it just it never stuck for me, just because I don't do enough stuff like that for it to meet my needs. Collins is here, man. Glad to have you. Let's see. We got Zishan. I hope I got that right. Glad to have you here. Dustin says Adafruit has the 8 gig version in stock. If anybody's looking for more, that would be the Pi 5. So definitely check out Adafruit if you're looking for an 8 gig model. Hey all, glad to catch you live again. Glad to have you all here. Honestly, like, I really enjoy hanging out and chatting with you guys. And I'm sure some of it's for ego, if we're being honest, but I actually appreciate the community that we're building here, and the back and forth conversations that I see you guys having in chat that I often just skip over because that's between you guys. But no, I'm definitely glad to see you guys here. Mind Ben, hey, glad to have you here. Practical IT with Jeremy, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate you. Best of Web says, hey DB, I love your videos. Could you make some videos about cloud panels and cPanel alternatives. Uh, Maybe. Cloud panels and cPanels are, from my experience, stuff that like third-party hosting providers use. Um, and cPanel, I guess you're asking for alternatives to that. I'll have to think about that, but possibly. Just started moving my Homelab to IAC using Ansible, much harder than it first looks. Yeah, I actually Nighthawk was trying to help me with Ansible earlier this week. We're gonna connect in a little group chat, hopefully here soonish. So hopefully Nighthawk can explain Ansible to me in a way that makes sense. I started digging into it and it started making sense, but my brain was done the day that we were talking about that in chat over on Discord. And yeah, I think Ansible is a cool idea. I just haven't got my brain around it yet, but I definitely want to learn it. Have you tried running rclone as a Docker service? I don't. Maybe I did. I know I ran SyncThing as a service for a while. That's how I backed up my phones for a while, but kind of got over that. AMP is better than Pterodactyl. Here are some suggestions. Citadel CockroachDB proxy server. Are those video ideas? Like I'll definitely take a look at a proxy server. Is proxy server the name of it? Because if it is, that's awful. I mean, that's like the Docker or the Docker thing called homepage. That's a terrible name if it's actually just called proxy server. Anyway, Evil Desktop says, "Hey, how's it going? Have you tried running a Chasm image inside Kubernetes?" I've run Chasm. I've done videos on Chasm. I like Chasm. I think it's a cool project. But I've never touched Kubernetes, so I couldn't help you there. I have to replace my UPS because it randomly shuts down with an error, and I wanted to build an SSD. Ooh, that sucks. You might just need to replace the batteries if that's what's going on in your UPS. Granted, I don't know how long you've had it or any of the specifics, but it could just be a battery issue. True Passion says, "Hi, and then why do you prefer Windows over Linux for your personal use?" Ease of use, honestly. I've done dual boots and I've done that kind of thing in the past. And I like Linux desktops. I like Ubuntu. I like several different. I like Pop! OS is great. There's another one that's completely escaping me at the moment. But because of Steam, which I know is kind of a cop out with all of the different ways that you can make Steam work on Linux. But honestly, if we get down to it, it's Adobe. Because I've spent so much time and money over the past several years getting into the Adobe ecosystem, switching over to a Linux-based desktop, and then trying to use the Linux-compatible video editors. It doesn't appeal to me at all. I like the Adobe platform. I've been using it for years. Everything just seems to work without much of a hiccup on Windows. And honestly, I mean, I could probably get used to it, but primarily it's Adobe and Steam. Because if I want to game or if I want to edit my stuff, I want it to just work. And I don't want to spend 5 hours finding a workaround to make it work. So, I already did a video on Image. I did that a couple of years ago. It might be worth looking at again, but I've already done a video on Image. Let's see. Cyberpunk says Ansible's amazing and I use it all the time. I use GPT to help me with some configurations. That's cool. I've actually done a few. There have been several times where I've been trying to set something up and I'll ask ChatGPT, hey, how do I do this? Or what's the best solution for that? And usually I get a pretty good answer. So I dig that. Hello from Argentina. I've learned a lot from your videos. Do you recommend file browser like Cloud? Oh, do you recommend? Man, I don't know. I don't do anything with remote file access, other than like my phone's back up to the Synology device that's back there, using one of their apps. when you get in like you could set up file browser in a reverse proxy. I would personally be apprehensive about that if you didn't have the right security in place. It says, thank you for coming back. Your videos have helped me land a new job in IT. That's awesome. I always love hearing those stories of people getting into, into self-hosting and Docker and all that kind of stuff, and turning it from a hobby into an actual job or career, or whatever the case is. I love hearing that. Servers on I do use Memos. I did a video on Memos months ago, and I use it fairly regularly. I kind of bounce back and forth between Memos and HedgeDoc depending on what I'm doing. Like if I'm just trying to keep notes about like ideas and things like that, I usually use Memos. But when it comes down to keeping notes for myself or writing scripts or things like that, I use HedgeDoc for most of that. Let's see. Oh, no batteries are new. It's an external UPS. Huh. Oh, man, that sucks if that's the second time it's happened. Oh, Evil Desktop says Chasm doesn't support Kubernetes, but they're working to integrate it. That's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. The folks over at Chasm are an amazing group of people based on my experience. A good group of people over there working on some really neat stuff. In fact, I made some videos about their stuff. Really dig it. I've actually thought about doing more videos on more of their containers and that sort of thing. But yeah, no, Chasm's really cool. I hope they get the Kubernetes thing figured out, because that'll open them up to a whole new demographic of people who strictly use Kubernetes over other systems. JD, glad to have you here. Thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate it. Remote SSH is good with SS or S Swifty. Huh. Haven't heard of that. I'll have to take a look at that. Let's copy that and save it for later. Let's see. JD says, in the process of deploying CrowdSec to all my infrastructure to secure it. Great project to do if you self-host apps on the internet or for yourself. I believe that. Yeah, like I said earlier, like it was just too much for my brain to take on when it first came on scene. I had just finished doing another the Athelia video, which just crapped my brain out. But I might take a look at CrowdSec at some point. I think that might be good. Thank you. True Passion, I'm really glad that my videos have helped. I really appreciate hearing that. Nighthawk says, I really want to try CrowdSec, but want to make it easy to deploy. So looking into a way to use Ansible. Interesting. That'd be kind of neat. I think I need to take another look at CrowdSec, since it seems to be very popular again these days. Oh man. So yeah, no, not much going on. Let me see. No. So we looked at that. Sorry, I'm looking over here at some of the containers that I've been looking at over the last week or two. And let's see, not that. Okay, so we did a video on Wallace this week, and I actually talked to the developer kind of behind the scenes via email. And I don't know if you watched the Wallace video, my biggest complaint was the payment method thing that actually got implemented, being able to, set up your own individual payment methods to have it kind of break things down better, so you can put in your own custom payment methods rather than just like credit card or PayPal. You can actually go in and say, like my own, like you could put in like Chase Freedom, or you could put in, Wells Fargo this or Capital One that. And I really dig that as a community, we were able to have a little bit of influence over that. I'll actually probably use Wallace now that that is an option, because it just wasn't. I like to know where my money is coming from, if that makes sense. Um, but just going and making that video and talking about it and that sort of thing, the developer actually did the thing that I think a lot of people wanted. Um, and there's another service that I've been looking at called WGER, which is a kind of a workout. It's like Fitness Pal but self-hosted. Um, is that something you guys would be interested in, or should I just skip it? Because I think, honestly, I think if I were to do a video on WGER, it would be kind of a why I can't recommend it at this time kind of video, which I don't know if that's the kind of thing you guys are interested in. I did a video about Passbolt, and kind of talked about it and why I didn't like it. Do you guys enjoy that kind of content? Like when I show how it works and why I think it's a bad idea. Do you guys enjoy that? I would definitely be interested in getting more info on that. Let's see. To-do list. See. How Alex? I hope I got that right. It says hi from Norway. I just have a VPN sync thing. A proxies. Oh, GM says I meant a proxy server. It's a used way to allow IP authentication to endpoints. I mean, I've done videos on like Nginx Proxy Manager and Traffic, and others. I think as far as reverse proxies are concerned, or a proxy server. Maybe I've got a different idea there. Um, let's see. Would love to learn secure SSH and other services on my VPNs. VPNs with VPN. Would love. Possibly Jason Jenkins. I'll have to come up with a way to do that. Also would love to set up fail to ban for work for services running Docker containers. Um, I've done a little bit of, I think in my Ophelia video, we talked about fail to ban a little bit. Um, the issue that I have with fail to ban is regex. Regex has never made sense to me. And so that's, I think, probably the main reason I haven't talked a lot about fail to ban is just because of regex, and that's learning a whole new language that my brain just isn't ready for. Any content is good content. Okay, so we like the idea of possibly. Okay, I'm going to keep that in mind for the subscriptions to track. Oh, are there? So John asks, are there any other self-hosted apps like the one you mentioned that scans your email for the subscriptions to track? Not that I'm aware of. It would be cool if there was. However, I would be apprehensive about giving a self-hosted app access to my email. Like, I don't even like, honestly, that Gmail reads my email and then gives me updates about when my doctor's appointments are or when I've got stuff due. But I think I would feel even more apprehensive about giving third-party self-hosted access to my email, if I'm being honest. Okay, it says be transparent and maybe show your recommendation. So it's funny that you say that, because like I've tried setting up this WGER a few different times and testing it and updating it and trying new things and that sort of thing. And my recommendation, honestly, would be to use a paid service like MyFitnessPal, but I would have to get into more details on that in the video itself if I decided to make it. Have you ever experienced a security breach in my Homelab? If so, how did you handle the solution? I actually did get hacked. I want to say it was like October, November. Gosh, was it 2022? I did. So somebody reached out to me with with an email that looked legit, with a domain, with an email address that looked legit. Everything looked solid. Like, and the domain that they emailed me from was a few years old. Like, they really did a good job of making everything look as legit as possible. And then I got an email, or then I got a wasn't a what was it? It was a PDF that they sent me that I was stupid enough to open, and it immediately I say it was a PDF. It was actually a malware virus hidden as a screensaver because I wasn't paying attention to the fact that I didn't have file extensions enabled. But there was a file extension that showed the .exe, and then later when I went and enabled file extensions, I saw that it was an SCR file, and I opened it and I was like, "This is weird that this PDF is 500 megs." But I was really excited about the possibility of working with the company that they said they were. So I opened the email and then I was like, "Wait, something's wrong here." And then later that night, I got an email from Amazon saying, "Hey, thanks for signing up for your 30-day free trial of Audible." And then I got email bombed. And I started receiving hundreds of emails every minute. And if it hadn't been for the Amazon thing, I never would have put any of it together. Luckily, I was able to go in and change my Amazon email or my Amazon password. And they're like, "Hey, there's a good chance that you were probably compromised. Let's take some extra steps as well." So Amazon was great about making sure that everything was taken care of. And then I spent the next 2 or 3 hours, because that's usually all the longer an email bomb works, is just a couple of hours. So I would wait for, say, 100 emails to come in, and then I would select all of those and say, filter these as trash, as spam, as whatever. And it took me 2 or 3 hours to go through all of it, to filter everything out and get it eliminated. But then, of course, I had to go through and change all of my passwords, and luckily they did not get a hold of my any of my YouTube stuff. And they did manage to get a hold of both my Facebook and my Amazon, like I mentioned. But then they got a hold of one of the pages that I used to run on Facebook and started sending child abuse material to people, to other people that they knew, who then reported that account for sending child abuse material to them, and then got my account flagged so that I couldn't log in and manage any of my stuff anymore. So it was an awful experience that I spent days trying to recover from, and luckily it didn't cost me any money. It didn't cost me my YouTube channel. It didn't cost me anything other than a fair amount of frustration. So yeah, no, it's absolutely easy to get hacked. In fact, I made a video about it later on. In fact, that was actually the lead-in to setting up Chasm on a mini PC. So yeah, no, it was an awful experience, and I managed to get out of it a lot easier than a lot of other people did. Let's see. CockroachDB is an alternative to Postgres in that it's nearly fully compatible but easily handles replication to ensure redundancy and high availability. That's cool. I will have to copy that and add it to my little notepad up here so that I take a look at it. I heard a rumor that I need to look into, that Maria database might get sold, that might get bought out by a corporate entity of some variety. Has anybody else heard that? Because that would really make me sad. Let's see. I did fail to ban with NPM and it worked well. A video on a head scale, self-hosted tail scale. I've actually considered doing that. I've looked at it a couple of different times, but I'm going to add it to my list again, just so that I can take another look at it with my brain being the way it is. Let's see. Regex can be crazy, but once you get them, it's really helpful. I believe that. I do. But yeah, I never spent enough time with it, and I probably should. But Jason Perkins says, "No problem. Thanks for your vids. Hope you're doing well." Doing better all the time. Appreciate that. Let's see. Welcome back, DB Tech. This is Wolfgang. Says added a fanless 4-port N100 system with 32 gigs of RAM. Does the N100 chip support 32 gigs? Anyway, running Proxmox hosted with a 2 terabyte NVMe, as well as a TrueNAS scale server with an 8 terabyte SSD. That's awesome. I really need to do more with TrueNAS. That's another thing that I've been putting off for far too long. JD says, I think CrowdSec's better than Fail2Ban as it does the same job along with crowdsource decisions to block attacks. And that's honestly one of the things that really intrigued me about CrowdSec is that it's kind of a community effort that communicates almost, I guess in real time, so that if one person gets hit with something weird and their system recognizes an infiltration or weird stuff going on, that it then notifies the entire community and puts them on guard as well. And I really do dig that. So maybe I'll have to give that another look. Did you hear about the Bitwarden UI redesign? I think I heard something about them changing some stuff. I'll be curious to see how that goes with regards to that redesign. What do you think about Proton Suite, VPN, mail, etc.? I think Proton's great for their anonymity and that sort of thing. But I've been all in on, again, out of just sheer convenience, I've been all in on Gmail for so long. And it's the convenience that goes along with it that I haven't done anything with Proton Mail. And as far as hosting mail, I think hosting mail is a bad idea, but that's just personal preference. Let's see. Use the free Proton service, and I like it, but I haven't given my address out to anyone yet to test it. I want to be really selective about giving that out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there were, and Nighthawk continues by saying a couple of influencers have been hacked the same way with the fake PDF. It was a thing. I actually made a follow-up video when somebody tried to do it to me again. I made a video about it and talked about that exact thing. Let's see. I have 2-factor authentication on my Amazon account for Home Assistant to keep bad actors out as well. Yeah, so did I. They cloned my fucking browser. I apologize for swearing, but that's what I think that PDF did, was it cloned all of my cookies and login sessions and all of that, and made it easier for them to get in to some of my stuff. Yeah. So let's see. Howlex says, I've tried to get WGR to work on 3 different hosts. Can't even get it to work. I may have to do a follow-up video on that. I've actually been talking, I opened a support or a ticket or whatever, an issue over on their GitHub repository because of the way they handle measurements. And there's been a lot of debate about how they handle measurements, and I hope they fix it. Because it's everything in there currently is, basically how many calories, how many grams of sugar, fiber, protein, whatever. It's all based on per 100 gram servings, which isn't practical because that's not how everyone does it. Sometimes a serving is half a cup. Sometimes a serving is something other than 100 grams. And so I put in an issue like, is there a way that we can do that? And there sort of is if you go through their full setup process. But by default, it's not, you don't just set a serving to be 300 calories and 20 grams of protein and, 4 grams of fiber, whatever. It doesn't work that way. So there's a bit of debate going on in the issue that I opened a week or something ago about that. But let's see. So yeah, I may do another video on WGER. Maybe it won't be as much of a tutorial on how to set it up, but maybe I'll just kind of do one of those stream of consciousness kind of videos like I've done in the past, going through the setup process and explaining, but then also getting into some of the other things and what I don't like. I've got some ideas for that. I'm going to add that to my list up here. WGER stream of consciousness video setup stuff. Sure, that'll make sense to me later. Let's see. Fake crash videos on Facebook that when clicked, take over your account, share the video to your page. And I've heard of stuff like that as well. I've been fortunate to haven't Uh, I haven't been victim of that, but I've seen a lot of people who have been victim to something like that anyway. Interesting. HA with 2 nodes. I have mixed feelings on that. I'll be moving to scale with my new server because I like the interface better. Yeah. One of the reasons I don't self-host my email. That yeah, there are just too many things that can go wrong when you're self-hosting email. Um, like right now, so I back in August I got set up with fiber through Quantum or whoever, right? Prior to that, I was with Xfinity, and I basically with Xfinity had a dedicated IP address. The only way to get a different IP address with Xfinity, from my experience and what I was told, was to get a new Xfinity modem. And now, if my I think it's called an ONT for my fiber. If it reboots, I get a new IP address. I've had so many new IP addresses since August, since I got it set up, which is fine to get a new IP address, except that, like, I've got my bank set up to only accept logins from certain IP addresses. So when my home IP address when it changes, I have to then turn on my VPN with a dedicated IP and log in and update my home IP address in my bank, as well as Cloudflare for certain things. So if you've got an IP address that changes, which is where I was going with this, even moderately frequently, or if something reboots, then your mail's going to stop working. Your MX records are going to be different. There are just so many different things that can go wrong with self-hosting email. And if you don't have all of your other records set up appropriately, then all of your email is just going to go to everybody else's spam folder. So I let the professionals handle my email, whether it's Gmail or Zoho. I used Zoho free for a while, or Proton Mail or whatever. I let them do it because they know how to do it, and the likelihood of their IP address is changing in such a way that it will ever affect me, next to zero. So I let them do it. Let's see. In payment and traffic reverse proxies. I was referring to an outbound or forward proxy. This routes all of your traffic through the proxy server so that it appears to be the source of the traffic. GM, I like the idea of where you're headed with that. Do me a favor, go join the Discord, which I will link. I'll put a link in here, copy link address. And if you have the opportunity, go post some links about that in our Discord for me, GM. I want more information. So if you don't mind doing that, that would be great. It's weird. I don't know what's going on anymore. Let me go find. Definitely need a video on. I've done videos on both PhotoPrism and Image. Definitely go check those out. Am I the only one tired of the bit as the root word for service is BitWard, Bitdefender, BitLocker? Dude, Jason Jenkins, I 100% agree with you. The other thing that really frustrates me is everybody doing the lowercase I. I know that Apple started that. I'm pretty sure Apple started that. But seeing everybody doing a lowercase I, like, that's enough to make me probably not want to do business with that company, because there's no originality with the lowercase I in the middle of the name of whatever. So no, I totally get. GM says Network Chuck did a video on proxy servers back in November. I mean, I'll do with that what I can. I honestly don't want to watch Network Chuck videos. I don't like his presentation. I've talked about that a little bit. Like, I'm sure he's an all right guy. I just don't like his presentation. So I try not to watch his stuff. Let's see. I wanted to like PeeWeeGo or whatever, but it would randomly crash. Huh. Yeah, how Alex? That's fine for the EU. And look, and it's very much, like the way America does things is different than the way the EU does things, is different than the way, the Middle East does things, is different than the way Asia. I don't want to be canceled for saying Asia. I don't know if that's, but China, Japan, everybody has their rules for how things are done. But to set up a Docker container or an application to only work or to only work with the way one region does things, I think is bad. Is a bad practice, and I think it's the same thing with the way America does things too. I would love if the whole world could just get on, an agreed path like the metric system, which most of the world has. There's only like 3 countries that don't use it, but I get that. I guess is what I'm trying to say. But the EU is a small part of the world, and I would like to see things done that's in the greater scope of everything. So anyway, spell the word wrong with random. Let's see. Trying to get WG to rise. Yeah, how likes the WGER or whatever it's called, which I think that's a terrible name for a container, but whatever. The video that I did was a couple of years ago, and it's not the same as it is now. Like the project has come a long way since then, so I don't know if it's going to work the same. But you can definitely check it out. Let's see. I'm setting up with OpenStack. The name sounds familiar, but I would have to double check and see what OpenStack is. Open source cloud computing infrastructure. No, I have no experience whatsoever with that. Networking compute. It looks interesting based on what I'm seeing up here. Definitely have to check that out a little bit more. Yeah, HA on Proxmox needs 3 nodes. The third can be a NUC or a Pi with Proxmox. Yeah, that's what I had, was a 3-node cluster, so that you've always got your quorum, so somebody can decide who's in charge and what the other 2 nodes should be doing. Set up Cloudflare DNS for that. Yeah. Oh, geez. Gosh darn it, where did that go? I was just looking at something there. Man, how far behind am I here? Just set up active pieces to automate the IP address changes, maybe with the exception of the bank thing. Yeah, that's all. Ours took over a week. Computers are confusing. Yeah, they absolutely are. Okay, I was wondering if OpenStack was kind of an alternative to Proxmox. We definitely have to take a look at that and see. Man, also setting up open or sorry, hold on. I'm reading. Yeah, I like the idea of setting up Cloudflare DNS to get IPs to update versus setting up active pieces, but I don't know your setup. You may not be using Cloudflare, so I don't know. But yeah, using Cloudflare DNS container is a super easy way to do it. I made a video on that too. In fact, it was one of my first Cloudflare videos, if I remember correctly. Not the first, but definitely one of the first, because it was before I got into Cloudflare tunnels. So I made a video about the Cloudflare DNS. Yeah, MX records can take a long time to populate. Let's keep scrolling here. Let's see, Cyberpunk. Here. Starcore says, I loved your Casa OS series. Any new projects with Casa OS? I'm actually planning on making some more Casa OS videos. I actually tried recently to do that a couple of weeks ago. In fact, it was one of the first videos that I tried to make after January, being hospitalized most of January. And it wasn't good. In fact, it was really bad. But I want to actually talk about the Zima Blade as kind of a lead-in, just because I think it deserves more coverage. But I want to do more Casa OS stuff, but I want to do a lead-in with the Zima Blade setup that they sent me. But I've absolutely got plans on doing more Casa OS related stuff, and also possibly Zima. I think it's Zima OS. is the new version. I don't know. They've actually got two different operating systems that they're doing simultaneously. I shouldn't say operating systems. Overlays, I guess is the better way to put it. Anyway, they've got two different things that they're working on: Casa OS and I think Zima OS. And I want to cover both of them. I've talked about both of them in videos in the past, but I want Zima OS or whatever it's called to get a bit more mature, just because I think there are some issues with it at the moment, based on the video that I did months ago. But definitely some more Casa OS stuff coming. Let's see. Cyberpunk says OpenStack is complicated even with a simple setup, but Ubuntu Canonical have MicroStack. Interesting. Mattermost task management also. I feel like I've done something with Mattermost, but I could just be blowing smoke with that. Let's see. Zima OS, that's their OS for the Zima Cube. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought it was called, but I couldn't remember. Also, the setup on Zima OS is currently kind of weird. You actually just flash the OS. I mean, basically you just flash the OS to your USB or your micro SD card, kind of like you would do for a Raspberry Pi. I know that they're currently working on an installer setup for that, but I don't know how long it's going to be before that is actually in place. Oh man, let's see. Sorry, I just kind of reading over stuff here. Sizable info for pricing point. Yeah, I mean, and that's just it. Like, talking about how companies are charging for egress, I get that. And that's, I mean, honestly, yeah, that's why a lot of people set up their own home servers and that sort of thing. Of course, then you run the risk. It depends on your ISP, but then if your ISP has restrictions on how much data you can push, they can start charging you for that as well. I don't know, like in the United States, like a 1 terabyte cap is fairly common, which I think is bullshit. But when you get into fiber and things like that, they don't even monitor, based on my understanding. But yeah, no, I've always wondered why companies want to charge so much for moving data around. It's electrical signals, it's zeros and ones, and I've just never understood that level of greed. But that's corporate America, or the corporate world for you, I suppose. Oh man, let's see. Structure by all means, do what suits you best. Any thoughts? See, Jason Jenkins says, any thoughts on the Chinese mini PC brands? I have some concern about the BIOS, what's preloaded, and availability for patches. But brands like B-Link and Minisform appeal to me. Yeah, so I've actually done some stuff with B-Link. I'm actually using one of their mini PCs right now. We hooked up before the end of last year, and then my life kind of fell apart. And I've been in communication with them since then. There have been some issues lately with like Ace Magic. Like both of those PCs that are lit up in rainbow colors are Ace Magic PCs, and apparently the 8008, which is actually this one right there, came pre-installed with malware that I still need to deal with. But I put up some firewall rules to block that application entirely as a temporary stopgap. Here would be my recommendation. If you want to use Ace Magic or whatever, right? I would do a full reinstall of Windows or whatever operating system you're going to put on it. Which is where I failed. I didn't reinstall Windows 11 on that machine, and I should have. So that should be the first thing. Reinstall the operating system that you want to use on it when you get it. Of course, they could put stuff in the BIOS. That's absolutely something that could be an issue. But then um, I would probably set up something like Wireshark or something to monitor the traffic that's coming to and from that specific machine if you've got the infrastructure to handle it. Um, like that one right there, that is just a Plex machine for me. All it does is transcode Plex. And then that's all I use it for. So I'm not super worried about that, though I probably should be more diligent. Let's see. So yeah, no, I know I only kind of answered that question, but you've always got to be diligent about those types of things and making sure that you're trying to use best practices, whether you're running it as a desktop PC or whether you're running it as a mini P or a Homelab PC like I'm doing back here. There's always going to be the risk that you would run. I'm just glad that somebody called attention um, to the files that were pre-installed on the 8008. I really appreciate that level of diligence in the community. Let's see. Let's see. We said people stress out too much about having the perfect server to get started. I've been using a Lenovo Mini PC, bought for $80 on eBay for years now with no issues. It runs great. Absolutely. When I first got started, I wanted the big, the 2 and the 1 and the 2 and the 4U racks. I wanted to fill this thing full of blade servers and all kinds of stuff. And then I was like, oh, those can get expensive to run. Just on sheer electricity, depending on how new they are, how old they are, the hardware that's in them, that sort of thing. In fact, I'm gonna get real data right now. That whole rack is currently using 260 watts, and that's all it ever uses, about 250 to 260 watts. In fact, it only bumped from 250 because I added a couple of mini PCs to do some additional stuff. And when you look at the 124U blades and the big slide in needs server rails and all kinds of, like, they start idling at like 100 watts or 150 watts or 200 watts, and I don't want to pay the extra money for it. Like, and again, like I've been chatting with 45 Drives about doing their HL15, having them send me one of those and doing content on it. And I struggle with it because currently my brain is still kind of stupid, but also because I don't know if I want to add an extra 100 watts to my power, or to my power bill. So that's just me kind of being what's the frugal is the word I'm looking for, I think. Let's see, let me come back up. Thoughts on Chinese mini brands. We talked about that. Can you add core boot to the BIOS? I think that's going to depend on the BIOS. Trains with Shane. Good morning. Not an FBI honeypot. I think it's just better to build your own. I kind of agree. Let's see. Yeah, exactly, Nighthawk. You have to make sure that you screw it correctly. His rack is 640 watts presently. Jeez. I've seen a ton of older systems that can't run Windows 11, 6th or 7th gen. Yeah, and those are the perfect devices. Those old 4th, 5th, 6th gen Intel processors are great to run as home labs because they don't take a lot of power, but they work really well for that kind of stuff. Starcore Labs says, how much does 260 watts cost per day or month? I don't know. The reason I say that is I never actually take a look at my power bill all that often. So where I live in Colorado, water, sewer, gas, and electric is all one bill. So I just pay my monthly bill. And it's usually like gas, electric, water, and sewer is less than $300 a month for me. So I probably should take a look at what the average kilowatt hour or whatever is. I've just never really paid attention to it because my bill is almost always the same. Yeah, I get it, James. I really want to, and I feel like as I'm getting better, I probably will want to. I need to get in touch with my person over there. And I really should do it. I don't want to get myself further into debt, so to speak, not financially, but like I've got a 3D printer over here that I agreed to review last year that I haven't yet. I've got a couple of mini PCs in the front of the house that I haven't reviewed yet that I need to. And I feel like that would just be one more thing on the list of things that I need to do. And I don't want to say, yeah, I can knock out an HL15 video by the end of April and then find out that I can't because something has gone wrong. I'm still very much in a fear is driving kind of some of my decisions at the moment, and anxiety, the fear of anxiety, the anxiety, like it's I'm still processing some stuff that makes me feel like it may not be a good idea for me to take that on exactly right now. Let's see. Let's see. True Passion says, do you see a future of ARM-based servers? I do. In fact, Ampere, um, 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 Jeff Geerling, sorry, I spaced for a minute. Jeff Geerling's been doing some really cool content about both an HL15 and Ampere stuff as well. Wow, how did that happen? How did I get clear back there? That's weird. Anyway, so I feel like there's a possibility that ARM could. I feel like ARM servers are definitely going to happen, but I feel like there's still going to be a ways to go before a lot of software will support ARM. And I feel like until the software catches up, we're going to be lagging a little bit behind with regards to ARM and Ampere and that sort of thing. Let's see. Most of my power usage is in my Homelab from spinning hard drives. Yeah, that makes sense. Electricity costs vary widely. That's true. Jason says he thinks he's paying about $150 a month for the Homelab. Let's see. My rack is less than my AC during the summer. That's good. Where I live in the Detroit area, water is cheap, but power can be expensive. I believe that. And NVIDIA's AI chips that are not GPUs or ARM servers. That makes sense. Man, I really want to get an AI system or a system that can support AI. I actually deployed something yesterday, an AI thing. Maybe I've still got it up here somewhere. Anyway, it was awful. Like it took like an hour for it to print out a response to a question I asked it because I had 2 cores and 4 gigs of RAM, and I was running it on a mini PC, and I would love to have a system that actually supports AI in a very real world usable kind of way. Wow, they couldn't tell you what the cost per kilowatt. What that's. I think my power bill actually says what it is. I've just never actually paid attention to it. Holy cow! In megawatt hours. Holy crap! That's a lot of power. Once I get my server set up, I'll try with a GPU and give you access. Ooh, that might be fun. Alone with mental health, I personally have complex PTSD. I'm in my 40s and it took me years to admit this publicly. I know that this sometimes. Jason, I appreciate that. I've been dealing with. I mean, I don't know how much of my story you know, but basically mine started in 2016 with medical stuff and medically induced comas and all kinds of stuff that I could talk about for hours. But that's not why the majority of you are here, so we're not going to do that today. But yeah, it's mental health is something that I think we should talk about more as a society. We've talked about that topic in the past here in the live streams, but yeah, I'd have to agree with you, and thank you for your comment, Jason. I appreciate that. I wonder what the cheapest GPU from NVIDIA is that can do AI. Nighthawk says an NVIDIA P400 M2000 or M40 is a good start, and those all start around $100 on average. Mental health struggles are no joke. They are real, very real. I'm happy to see that it's getting more traction to be okay, to not be okay publicly. I 100% agree with that. But there's still a huge stigma. Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. And that stigma, I think we've still got at least a generation or two before that stigma's gone. So, yeah. But I've been in regular therapy for just over 6 years now. Recently started taking some medication for it. Daily struggle, man. 100% agree. 100% agree with that. But I hope eventually that stigma that goes away, because everybody's dealing with something, right? Like, even if they don't want to admit it, everybody's dealing with something. In fact, if they're not willing to admit it, that's what they're dealing with, is they're not willing to deal with their own mental health. But we're not going with the Tesla. So anyway, yeah, God, we've been at this for an hour now, if you can believe that, which is kind of what I was hoping to do today, like we did last year. I think an hour is a kind of a good spot for me. I do appreciate you guys stopping by, hanging out with me on our little Sunday chats here. If you guys would do me a favor before we start to wrap this up, if you enjoyed hanging out for the last however long you've been here, if you'd hit the like button for me, that would actually help me out quite a bit. Gives YouTube something to engage with as far as metrics and that sort of thing is concerned. If you guys want, if you guys want to follow me anywhere, I'll go ahead and put this here. It's got all of my links for everything from Twitter and Facebook and Mastodon and GitHub and YouTube and TikTok, which I haven't touched in so long. If you want to become a patron and help support the channel that way, you can do that. There's links to all of that stuff on the link that I just put up there. Yeah, definitely come hang out in Discord. There's a group of us there. That would be cool. YouTube algorithm is trash. I don't disagree with that. I'm actually going to go see my doctor tomorrow. Dude, I hope that goes well for you, Cyberpunk. I really do. Starcore, thank you for hanging out. Nighthawk says join the Discord. No IRC, unfortunately. Gonna have to do the Discord thing if you want to chat. And yeah, like Cyberpunk says, remember to like and subscribe. I'm not gonna dance and that sort of thing for it. But thank you guys again so much for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate all of you being here. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. I'm gonna go see what the weather's like, see if the kid can go play out in the backyard today. And yeah, I think I'm gonna go. But thank you guys again so much. I know I've said that a few times, but I really do appreciate us hanging out and chatting and that sort of thing. But yeah, hope you guys have a great rest of your day, wherever you happen to be. And I'll chat with you guys either in Discord or in an upcoming video or in our live stream next week. So have a great time.